Hi everyone, welcome back to my Python videos. In this video we're going to continue our discussion on classes. Last video we looked at creating classes and what they were. They're templates basically for objects, and they allow us to keep our data and our objects together. So we're going to take that a little further in this video and look at inheritance, how to inherit from a parent class, and the difference between class variables and instant variables, which is an important concept. So this is an overview of classes. It's certainly not an in-depth study. There are many resources if you need to do that, but what we want to do is be able to use classes, use other people's work, and understand them enough to be able to read code with classes in them. So to start off, I've created a simple class. This time I use the cars analogy. Class is similar to the examples we gave in the last lesson, and it's basically, we've used cars. I think we used pizza the last time, but we've defined the class, called it cars. We've created the initialization routine so that it creates an instance of the cars, and it has only two attributes, two instant variables called the type of the car and the color, and then there's a method which is a function in a class that runs to print out the color and the type. So we've created two instances of this class, car1 and car2. We've sent different models and colors to that, and when we run this we simply get the my car's a blue sedan or my car's a green SUV. So very straightforward. So the next thing we want to do now is add a subclass to this, and I'll show you how to do that. The first thing we'll do is define the subclass. So we'll go class, call it electric cars, the parent class, which is cars, and now we have created a subclass of the parent cars for electric cars. So what this would be in the real world is that all the attributes of a car would apply to electric car, but then there would be some unique attributes for an electric car, like range, battery type, and so on. So this is a little new. We have a definition or a function, again, similar to the last one. What we're doing is we're doing an init statement to initialize the attributes in the parent class. So in the parent class we had type and color. In our class for the electric cars we're also going to put capacity. So this is essentially saying use the variables in the parent class, and then the super command is a function, a Python function, that tells Python to use the variables, the instant variables in the parent class. Where ones in the parent class are type and color, and then we have our own instant variable that's unique to electric cars, which is capacity. So we'll put a method here, also similar to the last one, that will print out the type of car and any unique attribute. We'll put a little extra on this one, the range, because electric cars have that attribute where how far can they drive on the battery, so that's important. So then we'll create a instance of our subclass, and we'll be able to use the attributes of the parents class. So again, this is the concept of the blueprint, where we have a blueprint of cars and we'll use that for as far as we need it, and then add the unique attributes of whatever the subclass needs. So it'll be, we'll call it eCars, and we'll use the electric cars, and we have to type in the type. Of course it'll be green, and it'll have a range of 180 miles. So now we should be able to call our eCar instance, and eCars that will describe the eCars, and that should run. So we should get what we've been getting here, the output of the two regular cars, and then we should get a third one which talks about the green car. So you can see how this works. It's a really simple example, but you see that the third line, which is from the subclass of electric cars, prints out it's a sedan and the color, and also gives the range of the car, the electric car. So this is how the subclass works. It's really helpful. It doesn't look helpful when you look at it first, but it is, because most times in Python you're actually using either a Python class or another class, you just don't realize it. So you'll see this a lot in the code, and we're going to use this in Pygame. To write games, we'll need to use superclasses and subclasses. So the final thing I want to talk about is instant variables and class variables. It's an important topic, as I said, and if we look at the variables that we've created this far, they are instance variables, meaning that every time there's an instance of this class, so every time we type something like car1 equal to cars, sedan and blue, every time we do that, that creates an instance, and when we create an instance, those instant variables are available to us. But they're unique to each instance, and the variables are defined through our calling and creating an instance of the object of the class. So oftentimes we need class variables as well, which are variables that are not tied to the instant. So an example in our case would be if these cars were from a dealership and we wanted to put that in the documentation, we would put under cars, we would put a dealer. We'll create a variable and we'll call it dealer, and we'll make that variable best cars. That's the name of the dealer. So this is not a great example, but the code will explain it clearly. So now each instance that's created out of this class will be from the dealership best cars, and that's what you would want. So now when we go to our print statement, we can print this is from. So now we have the variable that's not part of this instance, or not part of the instant that gets sent through the method. It's part of the class itself, and this can be used on the subclasses as well. So for example, under our subclass print statement, we could also type this here. So now when we run this, we can see that the car is purchased at best cars is under each instance that was called. So one other thing, just to muddy the waters a little bit more, you can also put, instead of cars dealer, you could put self. And you might wonder, why would self work here? Because this variable hasn't been defined in the instance of the class. Well, what Python does is when it sees self, it goes first through the instance of the class, and then it goes to the class variable. So this is another way of doing it. Either way will work, but if you run this, you'll see that it's the same result. So that's a very high level of classes and inheritance and class variables and instant variables. This is enough for most cases to at least help you understand what classes are. If you're going to write a lot of code around this, obviously you would need a little more depth, and that what you could get from python.org or many other sources. And there are a lot of other things to classes and inheritance that we didn't discuss here, but this is the majority of it, to use it to write code and use other people's code. So that's it for us on classes. I put a visual on the slide here if you find that helpful. If you find these videos helpful, please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. I'll put the code on GitHub, the link below, or on my website at pythonforadultsandkids.com. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon.